We're with John Kelly. John is a personal injury attorney in Phoenix, Arizona. He's agreed to answer some online questions related specifically to truck accidents. First question that was asked, this is from Kevin. Who can I sue after a trucking accident?
Well, that's an interesting question from Kevin, because there's actually, in a truck accident as opposed to a typical auto accident, there's a lot more people. You may have the truck driver, the driver's company involved. You may have the manufacturer of the vehicle, the truck. You may have someone who had maintenance to the truck, or the manufacturer of some parts to the truck, all involved, and may all have different policies. So you really need investigation done to see where the negligence occurred and what parties are involved, because truck accidents involve a lot of people often. And so there could be a lot of parties involved with a lawsuit there.
All right, next question was from Wade. Wade said, how are you able to prove if a truck driver has been behind the wheel longer than they should?
Truck drivers are actually held to a pretty high standard when they're on the road. The government requires that they keep logs of their travel time, and they're required to keep those books pretty regularly, and they can be checked by the police. And sometimes they're even cited if those logs are not properly maintained. So typically with a lawsuit, we're able to get that information through discovery or further legal processes that can get you that information that we need to pursue a claim.
All right, next question was from Diedre. If you're passing a truck on the right in a no zone, and they change lanes in your car, can you file a claim, or are you at fault for the accident?
Okay, so what this individual is talking about, the no zone, I believe he's talking about the area a truck cannot see a vehicle behind them in. So there's an area that it's kind of like their big blind spot. So he's saying he's passing on the right, which typically you want to pass on the left, so that there could be some comparative fault issues there. It may be the truck driver's accident. The majority of it may be the truck driver's accident, but the driver may have a little bit of fault involved there because he was passing in that blind area. That's something that really it needs to be kind of looked at closely. And a lot of times the police will come out and hopefully do some accident reconstruction and figure out, what speeds were involved, what the circumstances, road conditions were, and try to assess some fault there. Oftentimes they'll cite someone for the accident, which can be helpful to know who they believe that was at fault. But when it comes down to the civil suit, the claim could be apportioned to percentages. So it could be anywhere from 25% at fault to 100% at fault to 10%, all across the board. So there just needs to be someone to, some eyes on that, evaluating how this accident occurred.
Okay, next question was from Kerri. Kerri asked, is it possible to get compensation after a truck accident without having to sue?
Yes, Kerri, absolutely, you can get compensation without having to sue. And in fact, in my practice, over 95% of my claims are settled without ever having to file a lawsuit. Now, what that means is that we're still pursuing a claim. We open a claim, we provide medical records, we document the case, we investigate it, but we send a demand to the insurance company, and oftentimes we can get it settled on that demand letter. So what that means is if it's settled on the demand letter, there was never a lawsuit that had to be filed. Now, there are other cases where a lawsuit does need to be filed, and that's typically much further down the road, and then the legal process kind of kicks in of being much more formal. But the great majority of the cases are settled before ever filing a lawsuit.
Okay, and the last question we had was from Fern. Fern asks, in what ways is the litigation process for accidents involving commercial trucks different than lawsuits for car accidents?
Yeah, and this question I think kind of goes back to Kevin's question of, who can you pursue? Because in these kind of accidents, car accidents are much more straightforward. With the truck accident, there's a lot of other people that could be involved and be held responsible for the accident. So we're talking about For instance, if there's a log issue, was this driver on the road too long? Was it the driver's error, or do we need to bring in the company too, because they were allowing the driver and knew about it? Or was there a part that was not safe and not safely maintained by the company? There's just a huge amount of different scenarios that can take place in a large truck accident that may have contributed to the accident, which makes them very complicated cases. And they typically need, an investigator and a team working to make sure that we're finding out all the little details so that we can make the claim successfully.
Excellent. Well, if you have any other questions for John, just simply post them in the comments section below. He's agreed to get back to you with answers. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Ryan. And I'm available anytime for questions anyone has at the Kelly Law Team. You can call me at 602-283-4122.
Thanks, John.